In the spring of 1900, a group of Greek sponge divers on their way to Tunisia were taking shelter from a storm near the small island of Antikythera. While waiting for conditions to calm, they decided to search for sponges at a remote location off the island's coast. It was there, 50 meters below the surface, that one of the divers discovered what he later described as a pile of dead, naked women lying on the seabed. Any suspicions the divers might have had about a disaster at sea would have been proven correct by what they found next. However, it was a disaster that neither they nor most of their ancestors would have ever heard of. They were the first in over 2,000 years to lay eyes on what would soon become known as the Titanic of Antiquity, the Antikythera Shipwreck. And the last time anyone had seen her above the waves of the eastern Mediterranean, those same waves were ruled by Rome. The naked corpses were actually numerous bronze and marble statues, part of a cargo of stolen Greek treasure that was lost when the ship sank. Some were centuries old by the time of the disaster, while others were copies of existing works. As for the wreck itself, it lay beneath 50 meters or over 160 feet of cold, current-swirled water. Sitting at the foot of the island's steep, undersea cliffs, it was quickly found to be an ancient treasure trove. The wreck possessed many items, such as jewelry, weapons, furniture, amphora, coins, glassware, and hundreds of works of art, including several life-size marble horses and a headless, 7-foot-tall colossus statue of Hercules. However, the ship's most unique possession would not only prove to be the wreck's ultimate claim to fame, but it would also challenge pre-established notions of Greece's technological prowess. Among the discoveries that were eventually housed in Greece's National Archaeological Museum in Athens was a battered, inconspicuous lump of corroded metal that sat unnoticed for months in the museum archives. That is, until it cracked open to reveal a bundle of cogwheels, dials, and inscriptions. Soon becoming known as the Antikythera mechanism, the complex bronze gear device is now recognized as the world's oldest known analog computer. Dating back to 205 BC, the highly complicated mechanism is comprised of an interlocking series of 40 bronze cogs and gears. It also had pointers that displayed the positions of the sun, the moon, and several planets, as well as an eclipse prediction dial and a timetable of athletic events, including the Olympic Games. While unique for its own time, nothing even close to its complexity is known to have been created for well over 1,000 years afterwards. The device survives in 3 main pieces and some smaller fragments at the museum. The famous French marine explorer, Jacques Cousteau, explored the Antikythera wreck site in 1976. During his expedition, at least 300 artifacts and objects were recovered, including components of marble statues, bronze statuettes, and gemstones. Also among the discoveries were skeletal human remains belonging to the passengers and crew. Further research confirmed that the bones belonged to at least several individuals, including a young man, a woman, and a teenager of unknown sex. In more recent years, research teams have returned to the site of the wreck. Brendan Foley, a marine archaeologist based at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution in Massachusetts, worked with Greek archaeologists, including Theotokos Theodolou of the Effort of Underwater Antiquities, to scan the wreck. The latest archaeological investigations retrieved gold jewelry, luxury glassware, elements of marble sculptures, preserved wooden planks, and more than 200 ceramic fragments. A giant bronze spear was also found. Researchers suspect that it belonged to a larger-than-life statue of a warrior, or the goddess Athena. In 1901, the sponge divers reported finding 4 gigantic marble horses in the wreck. These finds may belong together, a spear-carrying person going to war in a chariot. Also found was an ancient defensive weapon known as a dolphin, a teardrop-shaped, lead and iron weight dropped onto attacking ships such as a pirate vessel, smashing their decks in the process. Later finds were made at a nearby area buried beneath large boulders from Antikythera's steep cliffs. These included the lid of a sarcophagus and the limbs of bronze and marble statues that hinted further statues buried somewhere within the wreckage. The discoveries are extremely important, as barely more than 50 intact bronze statues remain today from the ancient world. Most were often melted down to make swords, shields, and other items. The team also uncovered a small bronze disc, about 8 centimeters across, attached to 4 metal arms with 4 knobs. Brendan Foley thought it may have been a missing piece to the Antikythera mechanism. At a laboratory in Athens, the object was X-rayed. Beneath its green and black decay, instead of cogs and wheels, scientists found a decorative image of a bull. Although it was not ruled out whether it could be from the mechanism, it could just as easily be an adornment of the ship or a vase. In 2016, investigators discovered a human skeleton buried under half a meter of pottery shards and sand. The skeleton consists of a partial skull with 3 teeth, 2 arm bones, several rib pieces, and 2 femurs, all, unlike those found by Cousteau, apparently from the same person. The skeleton discovery is another rare find. The bodies of shipwreck victims are usually swept away and decay over time, or eaten by fish. They rarely survive for decades, and even more rarely for centuries, yet alone millennia. Despite being underwater for over 2,000 years, the skeleton's fairly robust femur and unworn teeth are believed to belong to a young man. DNA work also suggests it was likely a young male. The researchers decided to nickname the bone's owner Pamphilos, after a name found neatly scratched on a wine cup from the wreck. The missing head of a statue of the demigod Hercules was also found. The decapitated statue of Hercules, recovered from the sea in 1900, now resides in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. It is likely that this very head was the same one that it lost 2,000 years ago. The vessel, being the largest ancient shipwreck ever discovered, was possibly a massive grain carrier or merchant ship. It was huge for its time, estimated to be somewhere between 130 and 160 feet long with multiple decks. The crew probably consisted of 15 to 20 men, and there were probably also passengers and even slaves. The ship would have had a large amount of artifacts and luxury items from the Eastern Mediterranean. They were probably intended for the wealthy members of Roman society who often decorated their villas with Grecian art. The ship was likely on its way to Rome when a violent storm caught it off the coast of Antikythera. The island itself was a treacherous shard of rock notorious for sinking ships in bad weather. The storm smashed the ship against the island's rocky cliffs, so that it broke up and sank before people had a chance to react, trapping many of them below decks. While the crew would be able to get off relatively fast, shackled slaves would have had no opportunity to escape. The ship then had a turbulent trip to the bottom of the ocean, where it most likely rolled several times, flinging its treasures across the sea floor. In the 2,000 years since, earthquakes and landslides have further broken and buried its contents. There is also evidence that there isn't just one sunken ship at the site, but 2. The original ship is unlikely to have been traveling alone. When it sank, others may have gone down right alongside it. In 2024, marine archaeologists uncovered the wreckage of a second wooden ship 600 feet away from the first. It was found under its crushed cargo, which included pottery very similar to those recovered from the main wreck. This suggests that the ships were part of a fleet bound for Rome, perhaps bearing treasure looted from the island itself for the purpose of a triumph parade when they succumbed to the storm.